This lesson is about the complete rules for pronouncing the letter Ra. Objectives: to understand all the 15 rules surrounding the pronunciation of the letter Ra. And what we're talking about here is there's 15 rules which help you to determine whether the Ra should be tafkhim or tarqiq, i.e. heavy or light. So what we've got 15 rules for the letter Ra, and they're quite complicated, but what I've done is broken them down into 3 simple groupings, which should hopefully simplify it for you. The first one is 8 rules related to when the Ra is linked to the sound of Fathah or Damma, in which case the Ra will always be tafkhim, and this will become apparent what I mean here in the next slide. We have 4 rules related to when the Ra is linked to a sound of Kasrah, in which case the Ra will always be tarqiq. And then we have 3 exceptions for when the Ra is linked to the sound of Kasrah, in which case the Ra is always tafkhim. And if you can remember these 3 groupings, once we've covered all the rules, then it becomes very easy. So let's cover the 8 rules when the Ra is linked to the Fathah or the Damma. Okay? So let's do an example. So when the Ra itself carries a Fathah, it will be pronounced as tafkhim, i.e. heavy, full mouth, i.e. lifting up the posterior of the tongue, making your mouth more full, the lips go slightly round, so this will be Ra. Example here, Ra bihat. What you can't say is Ra. Okay, that because when you say Ra, you sort of make a smile, which is more like empty mouth. So you cannot say Ra bihat. This is Ra bihat. When the Ra carries a Damma, and it's going to be pronounced just like the first one, the Ra with the Fathah is going to be pronounced. So in this case, you've got Ru, it's full mouth again. So you've got Ru sulihi, Ru sulihi. If you have Ra sakin preceded by a letter with Fathah, it goes heavy. So this will be Maur Yama. And remember, the Ma must remain light. Don't go Mar. It's Maur. And then so the Ma is light and the Ra is tafkhim, full mouth. So you've got to switch from empty mouth to full mouth very quickly. Maur Yama. Maur Yama. Then if you've got the Ra sakin preceded by a letter with Damma, same thing again. It's tafkhim, mur salu. Now, if you have the letter Ra at the end of a sentence, so the circle here we've put in indicates the sentence marker, or you're stopping, i.e. the Ra is going to act as if it's sakin, and the sound before it is a long vowel Fathah alif, then the Ra will be tafkhim. So here we've got an example, now. So you've got to make remember the na is light, and then you've got to make a heavy sound with the Ra, i.e. going from empty mouth to full mouth. So now. Then if you've got the Ra acting as sakin at the end of a sentence or a stop, and the previous sound before it is the long vowel Damma wow, then again it's heavy. So dhukur. If you've got the Ra at the end of a sentence or stop, so it's acting as sakin, and it's preceded by a letter which is sakin, and that itself is preceded by a Damma sound, then again it's tafkhim. So this is yusr. Okay, and these are very difficult to pronounce, the Ra's at the end of the sentence. You really need to listen to a professional Qari to see it, because sometimes the Ra is almost not audible. So that's yusr. Then we have the Ra behaving as sakin at the end of a sentence or a stop, preceded by a sakin letter, which itself is preceded by a letter with Fathah. So here we've got Fajr, and again the Fa is light, empty mouth, you must maintain that, and then you go into a heavy mouth on the Ra. So that's Fajr. So to simplify that then, whenever the Ra carries a Fathah or Damma and it's going to be pronounced, or the last sound before the Ra is Fathah or Damma and the Ra is acting as sakin, then the Ra will be tafkhim. It's as simple as that. So you can break it down to the Ra with Fathah or Damma being pronounced, tafkhim, heavy, or The ra is going to be sakin, whether it's actually got a sakin or it's behaving a sakin, and the previous sound before it, whether it's immediately before it or slightly more before it, is a Fathah or Damma. It will be tafkhim, i.e. heavy, full mouth. Now let's look at the 4 rules relating to Kasrah. Okay, so 4 rules related to Kasrah are always tarqiq, i.e. the ra will always be tarqiq, except for we've got 3 exceptions coming up on the next slide. So if the ra carries a Kasrah, it's going to be light, tarqiq. And the easy way to remember this is when you say this ra, make a big smile. So you're going to go re. So here we have rijalun. If the Kasrah is sakin and the letter before it carries a Kasrah, again it's going to be light. So here we have tunzir. Make a big smile. If you have the ra behaving a sakin at the end of a sentence or a stop, and it's preceded by the long vowel kasra ya, it will be light. So this is khabir. And the last one here, we've got a ra behaving as sakin because of the sentence, end of sentence or a stop. It's preceded by a letter with sukun, i.e. sakin, and itself is preceded by a letter with kasra. It will be light. So here we have dhikr. Now that's again difficult to pronounce because you've got to get the ra in there. Again, you've got to listen to the professional qaris to get that exact. So simplified rule for that is whenever the ra carries a kasra and it's going to be pronounced, or the last sound before the ra, when the ra is behaving as sakin or is actually sakin, is a kasra, then it's going to be tarqiq, i.e. light or empty mouth, said with a nice big smile. So that's 4 rules. Now we'll talk about the 3 exceptions. So they're linked to the sound of kasra. So you've got 3 rules related to Kasrah, but they're exceptions because in this case the ra is still going to be tafkhim. So the first one is if you've got the letter ra when it's sakin and it's preceded by Kasrah, okay, but it's followed by one of the tafkhim letters, i.e. sad, dad, ta, dha, ghain, kha or qa. So ra sakin preceded by a kasra sound but followed by one of the tafkhim letters. In that case the ra will still be heavy tafkhim. So here we have mir sadin. Okay, so you've got to go straight from the mi, which is empty mouth, directly into ra, which is full mouth. So mir sadin. Now this is where it gets a little bit more tricky. Here we're talking about a word beginning with hamzatul wasl and the next letter is the ra sakin, but the sound before this word, so we're presuming the word's beginning with the hamzatul wasl, and the word before it or the sound coming before it is a kasra, then the ra